Afternoon, everyone. Foxpen here. Today we are going to be reading the merchant applications for Mossflower Odyssey, a Redwall Survivor adventure game. Very exciting. So I'm going to predict, I'm saying this for the record, right here, right now, that there's going to be squirrels and otters. That's what I'm expecting. Everybody loves a squirrel. Everybody loves a squirrel. They're like a mouse. They're heroic. They're honorable. They're smart, but they have the added advantage of being a little bit bigger and very, very agile. They're known warriors and scouts. Everybody likes a good squirrel. Also, everybody likes otters for the exact same reason. They're also bigger than even squirrels, so that gives them a little competitive edge when it comes to action sequences. They don't have to rely on their cunning and brains as much because they get to throw their weight around. Once again, I'd like to see a mouse. You know, nobody likes mice anymore. Everyone's always after the ferrets or the squirrels and the otters. And, that's cool. Everyone has their own thing. But, you know, the first hero of Redwall was a mouse. Martin the warrior. And his reincarnation, Matthias the warrior. And then Madameo of Redwall. Of course, like, one of the greatest lady heroes of Redwall was Meryl of Redwall. These mice go to show you do not need to be big to be a hero. Everything they do, all their goodness is shown throughout their words and their actions and their intentions. And so mice actually are a little bit harder to play. That you don't have a big hulking badger or a threatening stoat or a sly wildcat or a fox or anything like that to play. You gotta work with an itty bitty body that's a lot smaller than a lot of the enemies that the character's gonna get. On that note, I'm gonna go get a drink, enjoy some music. We're back. So I'm just going to get the ball rolling right off the bat. We have a lady wildcat named Nyika. I'm going to say Nyika because that's what it looks like to me. She's 16, so she's a youngin'. That's okay. A teenager. That's cool. That's cool. Sweet 16. Let's get this party started. You spend a lot of coin, don't you? Nyika said, peering atop the glass bubble to the vixen sitting across from her. She had noticed the way she had been teasing with a jeweled ring when she first entered her tent, but that wasn't her only clue. The fox crossed her arms and huffed. Who's asking? The wildcat shrugged, dropping her gaze back to the ball. It was unnecessary theatrics, but it helped beasts believe, and more often than not, that made the difference. You're here because of your mate. The vixen sat up in excitement. Is he here? Oh, aye, Nyika murmured. Her eyes flickered for a moment past the widow's right shoulder. She shuddered and turned back to the orb. He follows you around. What's his name? The vixen asked, suspicion in her tone. Split air, Nyika said, not missing a beat. Wrong. The wildcat hesitated, her gaze going back above the vixen's shoulder. She didn't lose her composure, but her ear twitched, the one with the nick in it. Cleave? No. Slit throat, she said, the trace of a growl in her throat. She was going to be mocked, at least she could mock in turn. You're not very good at this, are you? You don't know the manner of his death, Nyika said, looking at the window. The widow, sorry. What of it? The wildcat opened her mouth, but decided better on it. Sighing, she went back to her crystal ball, moving her paws over it in a feeble gesture. She changed direction. "Where are the kits?" The widow fidgeted. "We never had any kits." Nyika narrowed her eyes. She was lying. "Yes, you did. Where are they?" "I didn't." The fox hesitated, casting her eyes to the ground. "I sold them. I sold them to some slaver." Nyika sat up, pushing her crystal ball away. "Why?" There were tears in her eyes. "Because they needed to eat, and I did too. They needed some beast who could look after them." "So you sold them into slavery." Nyika's tail bottle brushed as a sudden draft blew through the tent. "Yes," the vixen whispered. "Find them. Buy them back or steal them, I don't care. That's why your mate can't rest." The vixen blanched. "You can't be serious." "Why do you think your mate stole? Why do you think he was killed? As I said, you lead an extravagant life, and here you are paying some seer to find the answer to why you can't sleep at night. You're plagued with guilt, and if you want to be rid of it, find your kits and live a modest life. They need a mother, not a master." The vixen nodded, then turned to go. "My payment?" Nyika said. The widow hesitated. "My mate was no thief. You didn't even know his name." Nyika had to bite back a snarl. "That's irrelevant. You still use my services. I gave you direction, and that's worth some coin." The widow placed a single copper on the table. "And you told me to be more frugal. You're not a seer. You're just very, very clever. Don't go around giving false hope to beasts, claiming you're something you're not." Nyika's eyes widened at the vixen's audacity. She made to intercept, but the widow was gone. Throwing the tent flap open, she called to her receding back, At least send some bread." Defeated, she slumped in the widow's chair, passing the copper, pawing at the copper and feeling miserable about it. "Oh, shut up," she growled in the empty tent. "I need to eat too, you know. No one will follow her. I have a business here. I won't watch your mate and her sniveling brats for you." "A nanny?" Nyika scoffed. "I'm barely past maturity. They'll be fine." "No, I can't promise you that." She was silent for a while, looking askance at her tent wall. Her face was set, but that did not stop the tears building up in her eyes. "That was cruel of you," she said, turning to the flaps that fluttered in the mountainous breeze. She brought the heel of a paw to her face, scrubbing away at the tears. "I do not have a split ear." "Aye, but it was still mean. Follow her if you want, but you know it only makes things worse." Rising, Nyika went back to her seat and rested her head in her arms. Her stomach rumbled. She hoped that widow would come back with some bread. Okay, so kind of a sixth sense thing going on for the others thing. Clever and original. She sees dead people. As I throw out a pop culture statement there, as I call it original, you don't see people that speak to dead people in these survivor competitions in the ROC. Yeah, there was that Operation Mindstorm, but that was a little ambitious. Nyika, sorry once again to all the authors. I read these applications, so sometimes I do stumble and fumble away. Congratulations to all the writers, by the way, for getting into the final voting round. It's always exciting. Well, you know, you can be proud of that. Yeah, she sees dead people. Nyika sees dead people. I like how she isn't a seer, but she does observe. She doesn't seem to be too good at her job, though, because she is quite hungry. She does catch the vixen fiddling with a jeweled ring, and then she does call the vixen out on, selling her children to slavery while mama there lives a nice, luxurious life. Yeah, that's definitely guilt playing at her heartstrings. So, yeah, all in all, just, a clever little app. It's solid writing. I don't know if this application is going to be strong enough to make it into the competition, but I'd like to see this character a little bit more on her, because I can see the whole talking with spirits thing coming in handy during the competition. I can also at least see it becoming a little bit of a issue, like within the characters. Maybe not a plot point per se, but definitely a big deal to the other survivors. So that's kind of cool. Yeah, good app, good solid app. Yeah. So yeah, Nyika was a wildcat, and I suppose the merchant really, they're more the wildcat application. Sorry, the wild card. They're the wild card application rather than the Dewhurst players, who I thought would be like more harmony with a couple good beasts thrown in for good measure, but they turned out all to be ferrets, and then there was short stack. So yeah, interesting. The merchants will probably be the more neutral ones. So far we've got a wildcat, which is typically vermin species, though she does seem to have a bit of a soft spot. So we'll see how that turns out. Next up, we have Alder Flint. I think I went to school with a dude named Alder Flint, actually. Interesting. He's a mouse, yay, a mouse, yay! And he's a he, yay! He's in his mid-30s to early 40s, so he's just learning what it's like to be out of your prime. Okay, here we go. Alder Flint flipped the letter over in his paws, letting the parchment become blank to his eyes. It was a gracious sight for the mouse, who had read it nearly 6 times in the past hour, the bare backside a welcome contrast to the haunting black words on the other. It was a miracle, a curse rather, that they had found their way to him in the first place. He had been in one of the southwards marketplaces, haggling with a customer for a decent trade when the Redwall beast approached him, the letter in his paw and purpose in his eyes. "My condolences," he had said. The funeral ended before he had even arrived, and with it came another surprise. "I'm sorry," Alder said to the younger mouse sitting by him on the pew they shared in the great hall. He was just a child, a few seasons out of Dibbenhood, as the Redwall elders described him, clad in a green tunic that was practically covered by a lilac window curtain he had tied carelessly around his neck and cascaded down his body like a cloud. I think I read that wrong, so I'm actually going to repeat that entire paragraph. "I'm sorry," Alder said to the younger mouse sitting by him on the pew they shared in the great hall. He was just a child, a few seasons out of Dibbenhood, as the Redwall elders described him, clad in a green tunic that was practically covered by a lilac window curtain he had tied carelessly around his neck and cascaded down his body like a cloak. The boy spared him a single glance in response, letting Alder take in his eyes. The mouse nearly choked, glossy in the pale color of mahogany. They were so much like hers. Alder needed a drink. "No, you're not," the boy finally mumbled, huddling further into the window drape. The sound of footsteps interrupted any further conversation. A grain squirrel peering in the aisle with his paws folded into the sleeves of his habit. "Alder Flint?" Alder stumbled up and moved beside the squirrel, following him as he led him around the corner into a separate corridor. The mouse had forgotten how suffocating Redwall could be as they walked, the narrow walls feeling like they would close in on him at any moment. Alder felt like he would faint. Whatever the squirrel wanted to say, he didn't want the young one to hear. The beast turned back to face him. "My name is Dimitri. I'm the abbot of Redwall. You've heard the news, I trust?" Alder nodded, feeling lightheaded. He reached for a flask he kept at his belt, pulling out the stopper. "Do you mind?" The squirrel gave a sudden glare as Alder lifted it to his lips and drowned the alcohol from within. The mouse wiped his snout on his sleeve, turning back to the abbot. "He has her eyes." No more pleasantries needed. The abbot didn't hide the malice in his voice. "I doubt you even remember your wife's face, let alone her eyes. How long has it been? You scowled 10 seasons? I loved her." Dimitri frowned. "I'd hardly consider abandoning your wife in the midst of night love. You're nothing but a selfish wretch who parades into towns with your wares and an empty flask, with no other intention than to take every coin innocent beasts have to fill it once you're more or waste on pretty gambles." I'm sorry, I'm flubbing this really bad. I'm going to reread that paragraph too. Dimitri frowned. "I'd hardly consider abandoning your wife in the midst of night love. You're nothing but a selfish wretch who parades into towns with your wares and an empty flask, with no other intention than to take every coin innocent beasts have, to fill it once more or waste on petty gambles, the squirrel spat. Then you leave when you're weary of them, like you did us, like you did your... The squirrel couldn't finish the final word, his old body yanked forward by the collar of his habit, and his face directly in front of Alder's. Don't pretend like you know me. I loved her, and she... The merchant started. She didn't need me anymore. A wife needs her husband just as a child, the squirrel spat, emphasizing the last word carefully, needs his father. Or are you not done lying to yourself? I loved her. But do you love him? Alder's claws came unclenched from around the beast's collar. He doesn't have an uncle, huh? Any beast? The abbot rolled his eyes and sighed. Take a look at him. What's notable? Alder did as he was told, giving a solitary glance towards the sun from around the corner. He looks just like his mum. And he's wearing a window drape. It's a cape, Dimitri informed. Young ones need heroes. They partake after them, look up to them. Usually, it's their fathers. His is Martin. He doesn't need an aunt or an uncle to raise him. He needs his father. But does he need me? No. But second chances don't come often, Alder, and you're all he has. You could fix your mistakes, be a family, Dimitri said. Or will you abandon him too? A second chance. Alder gave another look to the cape-wearing child, his head turned so that he didn't have to look at his father. The flask in his paws felt emptier than ever. What's his name? Sorry, Alder Flint. I really flubbed reading that. I'm not sure if it's the application or me, but some parts did seem a little bit awkward to read. That might just be the writing style of Mr. Flint. Or, once again, could be me flubbing. Everything is sight-read, of course. This is something you don't see every day in good beast species. I'm curious as to what happened to Mr. Flint's wife. Why did he abandon her in the middle of the night? With a baby on the way or just born or something like that. I kind of want more on this character. Like, this was a really good app, really solid, really original. Actually, I don't think. I mean, when children get involved, there's always that, extra dynamic. So it would be good for the competition. But then again, Mr. Flint would have to be once again, leave his child behind. If he didn't want to be accused of leaning on the child as a crutch during competition. I think that's what would happen. I don't know if that's what's going to happen or whatever. But, I don't think any Survivor contest had a character quite like this, before. Then again, I have been away for a while. I haven't read all the competitions. I haven't even read half of them, so I don't know. All in all, very solid, very cool, very original. I like it. I do. I like this application. I'm going to reread all these applications, of course, before I PM Balmahula with my choices. But I'd like to see Alder in the competition. I do like Alder. Alder's cool. Alder has depth, there's character there, and I want to see more of him. I want to find out what happens to him. So that's great. Next up we have Terrence Wellspiller, who's a red squirrel. He's male, and another 16-year-old. Hey, maybe he and Nyika can, watch TV together, help each other with their homework, gossip, sit next together in science. I don't know. Here we go. Sip of tea before we continue. I think I need it. Scrumptious. A mouse-made bodyguard sat in the hut of Yew's only barber with her wounded leg on a stool. How much longer, Wellspiller? The squirrel barber stood by his hearth, holding an iron rod in the fire. Ashes flittered about the small home, mixing the scent of cinder with the stale wine soaked into the floorboards. Blake, miss, and don't worry, we'll have you out soon. Blake turned on his son, who was kneeling at the guard's side. The young beast was all tail and no torso, covered in reddish fur stained with sunlight. Blake furrowed his brow. Come on, Terry, said Blake. Quick fussin', and the guard cut in. Why do I smell flowers? Terrence finished trimming the fur about her leg wound, a shallow puncture. minutes ago, and continued grooming as the iron heated. Using paw-carved combs, he pulled burrs and tangles from the guard's leg, sprinkling a few drops of floral oil on the bristles as he worked. He smiled on leaning back and inspecting his work. "It's lavender oil," said Terrence. "Keeps the fleas away." The mousemaid turned her leg and studied the fine lines of clean, glossy fur. She hummed with approval, but the sight of Blake pulling the orange-tipped iron from the flame made her flinch. "Quit with the flowers and hold her leg," said Blake. Terrence's smile vanished, and he took his time replacing the combs and oils into his belt pouch. We could wine-wash your wound and apply a bandage," said Terrence. "It'd be safer, and I think—" Blake spun towards him. "Nobody's asked for your thoughts." Blake grabbed Terrence by the tunic, dragged him out the front door, and pushed him into the street. Neighboring villagers watched, but not one got between the old squirrel and his son. "Take your great ideas across town and check on Joseph. Change his bandages and bleed him." Joseph's cottage was clear across Yew, and each home Terrence passed had shutters creaking open for a look-see. He found Joseph Joseph the Vole sitting on a rocker in front of his home. His head was wrapped in bandages, leaving a patchwork cocoon on his shoulder with only a hole for a snout. Terrence took a deep breath. "Good morning, Joseph. It's Terrence. Has the pain stopped?" "Right paw for yes and left for—" The vole raised his left paw before Terrence finished. Across the street a family of mice stepped from their cottage and watched. Terrence's red fur turned a few shades darker. "Oh, okay. Let me check the bandage," and Joseph's left paw shot up again as the young squirrel touched his cocoon. "I'm sorry, but I have to make sure your head is healing right." Joseph lifted his left paw higher. Terrence's voice cracked as he spoke. "I'm not my father. I won't make it worse like him, I promise." Terrence reached for the bandages again, and Joseph shot from his chair. The vole tried for his door, but collided with the frame instead, falling backwards into a heap. The paws of the mouse family pulled the young squirrel away as he tried helping Joseph up. "Back home, lad. He's had enough of your help." Terrence elbowed himself free from the family's grip and ran, and ran, and ran. Through the blur of tears he did not see the beast on the path ahead until her arm caught him by the stomach. "Ah, come to make my other leg pretty." He ran clear through Yew and out onto the south pass. A familiar guard held him, the puncture on her leg untreated, and by her side stood a mole-made merchant and a silk-laden cart pulled up by a strapping otter. The mole-maid bumbled forward. "Goodness, what have we muir? Mole accents are a little hard to do. The guard set Terrence down and wiped the wet from his eyes. She did not speak for a moment, but watched the young squirrel as he fidgeted and looked away. "This is the one who prettied up my leg, mistress. He's coming south with us to peddle his grooming. That's smart of him to keep us waiting. It won't happen again, right?" Terrence looked up the trail towards Yew, spotting the little curls of chimney smoke from his father's hut in the distance. He looked back up at the mousemaid, who wore the hint of a grin beneath her hard-lined face. He closed his eyes, put a paw on the tool pouch on his belt, and turned towards the mole-maid. "Right. It won't happen again." "So, his daddy's a doctor, a butcher, barber, sorry. Barber, the job barber used to entail everything. The barber dressed your hair, dressed your wounds, a barber used to mean more than just someone who cut your hair. So obviously his dad is a barber who also dabbles in the medicinal aspect, and he's trying to get his son to do it as well, but he doesn't want to accept his son's differentiating opinions about what medicine they should practice, like how they should practice medicine. Okay, that's actually normal. Daddy would be pig-headed and not listen to their kid. No new ideas here, thank you very much. So, yeah, I'd actually like Joseph to treat me rather than Blake. And that poor vole. It's weird that the mice family would hold Terrence back when Terrence actually wasn't the one doing anything bad to Joseph. Joseph just seemed to be scared of medical treatment, and considering what he's been through with Blake, who could blame him? I just wish those mice would mind their own business. But good for Terrence for getting out of there. You gotta move on. Gotta find your own way, and he's at the right age to do it. So this is a believable app in Terrence's character. So Yeah, I could, a groomer. Cool. Cool. You know? I'll treat your wounds and make you look pretty. It's useful considering everyone in the prologue of Mossflower Odyssey just, fell off a cliff. Yeah, what I'm saying is their hair's ruffled and I'm sure they'd like it to be smoothed down. Okay, coming up next we have Pollux, the Stoat, who is a male, and he's 30 or so. Okay, that's cool. It was that deep period when the night was darkest. The path for him was lit by a spray of stars that illuminated his way in small crescents. He did not feel heavy, though the letter in his pocket did. He felt numb and useless. The forests around him were black in the night, and they reminded him vividly of Mossflower, his childhood home. That forest had twisting, joyous paths which him and his brother had run through in youthful ecstasy. Those days were long gone. Soon he came upon a series of tents, shrouded in dark. Foggy wisps surrounded the moon. He could tell from little bits and pieces that it was a woodlander establishment. Try as he might, he could not muster hatred for the woodlanders. He walked on, pulling a bottle out of his pack and twisting the cap open. He was just about to lift the bottle to his lips when a sound jolted him from behind. "Stop there, vermin!" The inconvenience unsettled him. He was in no mood for games. The soldier that had stopped him was a woodlander, Squirrel. And he was alone, though armed. He stopped. "I'm not here to harm any of you," he said tiredly, glancing into the squirrel's angry eyes. "Just let me go. I just want to go." He paused, relishing the sight of the arrow, realizing in a flash that he wouldn't care if the boy decided to do the opposite. "What the hell are you doing? Shoot me, then," he said softly. "If you think I'm a threat, shoot me." The soldier hesitated. For some reason this enraged Pollux. "Don't stand there and pretend sympathy," he shouted. "You and I both know that you've hunted down people like me on the battlefield, and Vulpes knows I've done the same to you." The letter in his pocket heaved with the exertion of his heavy breathing. "We never cared then, so why should you care now? Shoot!" The squirrel lowered his weapon slightly. "Is that grog?" he asked. "Alcohol," Pollux said with some confusion at the turn of subject. "Cheap." "Give us a drink," the squirrel said, his weapon lowered even more. "Go on, give us both a drink. Let's sit." "What?" He was incredibly perplexed now. "I mean it. You and me. Let's split a bottle." "I'm in no mood for your games." "No games!" The squirrel raised his paws. It was eerily quiet, the darkness pressing down on them. "Just drinks. That's the way it's supposed to be. My name's Sam." Pollux, who already didn't care, sighed and decided to play along. He gestured to a bit of rock wedged between some oaks a little ways up the road. "Let's drink there, then." Sam walked behind him, and both of them sat at ends of the rock. Pollux glanced suspiciously at Sam, who handed him a flask of his own to fill. Pollux filled about half of it and kept the other half for himself. They stared at each other for a moment before the squirrel drank. "This is pretty bad." "Sheep, I told you." He shrugged and raised his flask to the soft light of the moon. Pollux looked down through the slim neck of his own bottle and saw stars from the sky swimming in the murky liquid. "Can I go now?" he ventured. Sam pretended not to hear him. "Tell me, Stoat, what do you dream about at night?" "Is this a game?" "No game," Sam shrugged. "We're supposed to be different, you and me. I want to see if that's true." Pollux decided to answer with the truth. Not that it mattered. "I dream of red," he confessed shortly. "Red everywhere. People I've murdered in the name of the Vulpes." Shifting his gaze, he saw a clump of Edelweiss, white, pure, and unstained. "You? Same, I guess." "This is absurd." "This war is absurd." Sam paused. "You know, before this, I was eager to come out and fight. Then I killed my first man." His voice trailed off. "But I'd do it again. Not because I want to, but because you've given us no choice. Because it's the thing we have to do." He looked at Pollux. "What about you?" "There are many things," he said with a sigh, "I've done that I won't do again." So, this is a pretty dark application, actually. Yeah. Kind of reminds me of an app I wrote once upon a time. And that there was a... Oh, I gotta sneeze. Hold on. Excuse me. And then I had a character with PTS from a war that had been fought a while ago. War is hell. We all know that. War is hell. And these two characters, I like how the squirrel actually gives them a chance. You know, we're supposed to be different, you and me. I want to see if that's true. I'm a little surprised Pollux was a little more enthusiastic to show that, you know, soldiers are soldiers are soldiers, no matter what uniform you wear, considering what I assume Pollux has been through, because he does speak of some dark things, you know, that he's done and won't do again. So that's interesting. I do wonder what Pollux does for a living. Is he still a soldier of fortune, a sellsword, or is he a merchant or somehow? I want to know how he gets onto this, how he gets into the plot. I do like how some of these apps have tie-ins to Redwall. Redwall is actually mentioned in the Mossflower Odyssey prologue, so that's cool. So Pollux, Alder Flint, you know, these characters do have some connection to Redwall, which makes me feel warm and fuzzy on the inside, but I am drinking tea, so that might be it. Scrumptious. Yeah, I think this app could have been more. I think it could have been a little darker. I think a little less dialogue and a little more, you know, when I say action, I don't mean like pew pew. I don't mean like crazy like fight action. I mean just like more description of the characters themselves. You know, what they feel, what they're doing. I think this app is a little bit lacking in that department. I don't really know much about Pollux. But I do like how the squirrel gets a name about halfway through the app. He goes from being an enemy to Sam the squirrel. That's cool. So, you know, it's a good app. It is a good app. With maybe 50 more words. I feel like this app could have really shone through. Shone? Wow, I gotta read a book. Read a book, Foxpen. You don't know English very good. Oh, shut up, you. No, you shut up, you. I'm just actually trying to find the word count button, and yeah, there it is. This app is 727 words, so it's well beneath the word limit. Sometimes less is more. Sometimes less is more, but sometimes it's good to use all that you got. And I think with a bit more juice, or a little, you know, just a little more meat on this bone, it could have been like right up there with like Carrigul. So this character definitely has potential, but right now he's a little bit boring. Sorry, Pollux. It's just, you know, I don't know anything about the character right now except that he's seen and done some nasty things. But in war, who hasn't? So, either way, solid writing, good solid writing. Couple little grammar or spelling mistakes that did distract me. I try to ignore spag in applications because obviously if you're in the final voting round, your app was edited well. So good for everybody. I'm gonna move on now. I think this is the last one. Yep. Oh, the last of all the reviews I'll be doing of the applications. Okay, so we have Zefka Blackbriar, a Pine Martin, a Lady Pine Martin. Ooh, who's 24? Cool. I'm 24. No, I'm 23. I will be 24 on the 13th of June. That's my birthday. June 13th. Yeah. Someone in the ROC had the same birthday as me, I think. I remember. And so, like, it has nothing to do with anything. It was just a little memory that came up. Zefka Blackbriar. Okay, here we go. Until recently, Zefka would have never imagined that an unseasoned, rather smoky wood pigeon could taste this delicious. But then, that was not the only thing that had changed recently. She and Mikad had both cheered like idiots when their crude springe had netted their first dinner in 2 nights. What is a springe? I don't normally do this, but I'm actually taking a minute here to go on dictionary.com and look up this word because I've never seen it before. And I hunt too, so if it's like a kind of snare that I'm unaware of, that's a little sad. Springe. A snare for catching small game. Well, shame on foxpen. I'm actually just going to start over because we're only on the second sentence and I've already had to interrupt. Sorry, Zevka, sorry. Until recently, Zevka would have never imagined that an unseasoned, rather smoky wood pigeon could taste this delicious. But then, that was not the only thing that had changed recently. She and Mikad had both cheered like idiots when their crude spring had netted their first dinner in 2 nights. I have to say, Zevka, I'm really regretting that time we skipped a blanket to go watch a fight. Mikad chimed in from his place on the log they were sharing as a bench. Add that to the list, Zevka growled, right under not burning that wretched corsair ship to the waterline and tossing the captain and his stupid magic sword into the deepest part of the bay. Preferably before your idiot uncle decided to form an alliance with him. Don't remind me, the wildcat groaned. There's a reason the rest of the litter all got castles or giant hordes and Uncle Poe got the lousy improvised fortress, Mikad sighed. I thought living there meant I was sure to inherit something when Uncle Stecky got himself killed. What a great plan that was. Well, damn those Redwallers to gates and back, Mikad snarled, cutting Zevka off mid-word. You know what we should do? Go find some warlords who'd like a magic sword and help them burn that place to the ground for conquer— Ow! Wildcat yipped as Zevka took a wood pigeon leg she had been about to bite into and proceeded to smack him across the face with it. Did you really just hit me with a wood pigeon leg? Hey, quit it! The cat yelped and raised his arm against the unexpectedly ferocious volley of blows. That's to knock some sense into you, you idiot! Zevka snapped more sharply than she had meant to. What I've been telling you since we were kids. The first rule of being a vermin warlord, don't try to conquer Redwall. But sure, let's break that simple rule. Then instead of us shaking our heads over dead Warlord 12 and asking how any beast could possibly be that stupid, it can be the other beasts doing that to us, since we'll be fertilizing the Redwallers' crops for them. The marten sighed, and her voice softened considerably. We just got kicked out of our fortress, and most of the beasts we know are dead. I can't lose you too. Both Cat and Martinus were quiet for a bit. Finally, Mikad broke the silence. So, what do we do? Zevka sighed. I've been thinking about that. There are a few little towns if we keep heading inland. Yew, Briarwood, places like that. Places where a lot of beasts come and go, and no beast asks too many questions. I live in a trading town like that before I signed up with your uncle. I think we should go to one of those towns, set up a tavern or a shop or something, and get ourselves established there. A nice thing about towns is that you don't need to build up a huge army or build a fortress to be powerful. You just need to have enough coin and the right knowledge. Oh, she added with a grin, and of course, you do need to crack a few heads every now and again. Mikad thought about this for a bit. A town? I don't know, Zevka. What if we don't find some way to strike it rich? This doesn't seem like much of a plan. We don't really know any beast in Yew or wherever. Zevka sighed. No, it isn't. I'm making this up as we go. But what other choice do we have? I mean, I guess one wildcat warlord's son became a farmer. Both beasts pulled a face. Well, that settles it. We find a town, make ourselves into local heavyweights, and make out like bandits. Zevka smiled. And look at it this way. The age of warlords is going downhill anyways. At least we won't be on the ship when it sinks. Mikad chuckled. Can't argue with that, Zevka, he said, turning to face her directly. I'm glad you're with me. Me too. The two sat in silence for a bit. Mikad hesitated a moment, then chimed in again. Are you sure we can't conquer Redwall? Oh, I'm kidding, Zevka! Mikad spit out the last bit as all one word. Now, you tell me. I could have eaten that leg. Cute. Yes, don't conquer Redwall Abbey. Historically, I believe only one warlord has ever made it into Redwall Abbey. 2 major villains have made it inside Abbey. Slagar, the cruel / chicken hound, being the one directly after Clooney the Scourge actually breached the walls of Redwall. Oh, I suppose Ironbeak, but he wasn't the main villain. Not a male, Slagar was. Cute app. Really cute. I actually want to, there is a flaw that that happened along the way as I was reading. I didn't really care about Zevka, and I wanted to know more about McCad. His family history seemed quite interesting. His uncle inherited some crappy place, all the while his uncle's other siblings got, like, cool, really good castles. So, what's up with that? What's going on there? So, it's just like, what's going on in McCad's life? Anyways, definitely these characters are expressive. I could picture them very easily in my mind, all the faces they were pulling and everything. Everything they were doing. Yeah, that smoky wood pigeon does sound delicious, actually. Pigeon is really good, so. Yeah, a good solid app. I do kind of want to get more on Zevka because I feel like she's not per se the brains. Excuse me, the brains of the operation, but she is able to try and look on the bright side of life. So that's cool. So those were the merchant applications, everyone. Nyika the wildcat, Alder Flint the mouse. We have Terrence Wellspiller the red squirrel, and Pollux the stoat. Oh, and of course Zevka Blackbriar the pine marten. So not at all the types of animals I was expecting. I only got one squirrel. There were no otters, no ferrets, but you do have a stoat and a pine marten to fill that muslid crevasse. Pine martens. There was a pine marten. Yeah, and Emperor's Decree. There was a pine marten. Chick. Pine martens. Everyone likes pine marten, so they're not actually all that rare. I thought they were, but the more I thought about it, the more I realized I was wrong. All in all, solid apps. Not too excited actually with the merchant applications, but I have only read them all once, so we'll see what I feel the second time around. Once again, congratulations to everyone who made it into the final voting round of the applications. Good luck to everyone. I have a few of my favorites already that I'm going to be secretly rooting for. By secret, I mean I'm going to be wearing their banner. Carrigul, marry me! Noonahootin, name my babies with Carrigul. So yeah, I'll be sending an admin a PM sooner rather than later with some voting, and we'll see what happens from there. I hope this is a great competition. I hope everybody remains active. That'd be great. ROC is, well, it's not what it used to be, which is very depressing. But we've got our goodies, we've got our oldies. There's always a chance for new fans to come in. So I think some activity would be great. And I hope if you get into the competition, I do hope you give it your all. That's what you're here for. That's what everyone wanted to see. So, good luck. And on that note, I gotta go to work. So, cheerio everyone. We'll talk to you soon.